A sharp uptick in the number of German firms beginning insolvency proceedings is raising eyebrows in Europe's largest economy. Some 762 firms declared bankruptcy in September. Now, that's a 34% increase from the same period last year. And the upward trend is set to continue this month and the next. That's according to the Halle Institute for Economic Research. According to their new report, by November, up to 40% more companies could be beginning insolvency proceedings compared to the same period last year. Now, the report blames not just a lackluster economic outlook, but an aberrant period during the COVID-19 pandemic. That's when insolvency numbers actually fell. I asked economist Stefan Müller how to interpret the new numbers and the overall trend.
Yeah, it's important to put those numbers into perspective. So we have seen declining bankruptcy numbers for almost 20 years now. And there was in particular a dip over the corona pandemic. So the increase that we see now is indeed partly a return to normalcy, but only partly. The rise in bankruptcy numbers is relatively strong. And if it continues, we'll likely, have more bankruptcies than before the pandemic. So it has to do with the economic circumstances. And having said this, we are still far away from a bankruptcy wave.
I want to go back. Many of our viewers may not understand, why did insolvencies actually fall during the pandemic? One would think that they would rise as times became tougher for businesses.
Well, we have seen a lot of rescue measures during the pandemic. So for a couple of months, bankruptcy was even not obligatory, even if you meet the criteria for bankruptcy. And many firms actually just waited to see whether they will be viable after the pandemic. So there was kind of a wait and see mentality. And the question is now whether the rising numbers also partly reflect kind of bankruptcies that have been postponed just during the pandemic.
All right, so maybe bouncing back after that period of fewer insolvencies.
Exactly.
What is the biggest challenge that businesses are facing right now, looking forward?
Well, one challenge, of course, are rising energy costs, but this is mostly hitting energy-intensive, industrial firms and indirectly other firms because of depressed consumer demand. But this is not the whole story, right? We have at the same time also rising interest rates. So borrowing money is getting much more costly. And this is in particular a problem for weak firms. So refinancing is much more costly than it used to be over the last years, and it's going to be more costly in the months to come. Then we see increasing wages. In particular, we saw a sharp hike in the minimum wage just last week, an increase by 14%. And on top of this, of course, we are going to go into a recession with lower demand. So there is a bundle of reasons that, can lead to a dangerous situation here.
Right now in Germany, there's a discussion about capping gas prices, essentially artificially bringing energy prices lower. How critical could this be for the number of insolvencies we see in the months ahead? Can you make any connection between this discussion and what we'll see with insolvencies?
It's actually hard to make a connection between those two things because the number of energy-intensive firms going bankrupt is relatively low at the moment. We see quite a few bankruptcies in retail, for instance. This is not an energy-intensive sector. So I would expect to see not a big influence of those, energy cost cuts on the bankruptcy numbers.
All right, that's Stefan Müller at the Halle Institute for Economic Research. Thank you so much.